Hello and welcome to the Brass Tacks Podcast. My name is Amir Carr. I'm your host tonight. And on our podcast here today, we're going to talk about cryptocurrency, why it's important, what's important about it, and essentially what we're doing with this program here. So, with that, let me bring up some information so you can see for yourself as I go through my process. All right. So, let me start so I'm clear. I get everything in there. I want to welcome you to the Brass Tacks Podcast. It's a place where we cut through the noise in order to get at the root of the issue. Brass Tacks is a program dedicated to fleshing out information that mainstream media simply will not touch. So that's our goal. Our goal here is to provide you with information that CNN and NBC and all those people just will not talk about, but it is equally as important. At Brass Tacks, we don't just pin down the truth, we drive it all the way in. All right. This is episode 1. And in episode 1, I'm going to give you 2.66 trillion reasons why we should all pay attention to cryptocurrency. So this is going to be a brief talk. I'm not going to belabor the issue. I'm going to lay down some points, explain a little bit about myself, and then we're going to talk about the topic at hand. Now, first, who am I? All right, so my name's Jerome Carr. That's the name I write my book under, but all my friends know me as Amir. If you're a friend of mine, you know me as Amir. So Amir Carr is my stage name and my general name that people go by if you know me in my social circle. I'm a crypto professional and I'm an enthusiast. I'm a humble student within this field of blockchain, otherwise known as cryptocurrency, digital currency, and investing. I'm also a teacher on the subject, and I've developed a curriculum around what I teach. I put that into a book known as the Ultimate Crypto Bible, a guide to understanding digital currency, markets, and storage, which is written under my name, Jerome Carr. I'm the founder of GoBanklessNow.com, which is a business dedicated to helping people learn to live without banks. If you ever thought that was possible. This is a photo cover of the book, The Ultimate Crypto Bible, Demystifying the World of Digital Currency Markets and Storage Solutions, which I put out the first edition about 3 years ago, and then it's currently being revised. I'm an independent voice. It's important for you guys to know I don't have any sponsors nor affiliations. I just believe I'm a person that believes sincerely that cryptocurrency is a disruptive technology. It changes the world. Cryptocurrency overall makes us more free as it eases the control of the governmental system over each one of us. Brass Tacks is a cryptocurrency bi-weekly podcast. Our next episode will be May 18th. So we're every other week. And this is a long developing idea that I had kind of baking in my brain. I thought about doing it several times. It was simmering until, the right person came around and invited me to do something with it. So I give thanks out. I like to give thanks to Culture Shifts Media for giving me this opportunity, making a space within their organization so I could come and present some of this information. I also want to thank a very close friend of mine, Yusuf Benson, who's one of the leaders in the organization, one of the members who personally invited me. And so I'm responding to his invitation. Okay, so a little bit of a disclaimer, right? We got to get the legal stuff out of the way. What this talk isn't about. So this talk isn't about investing per se. And what I mean by that is that's not my goal. My goal isn't to talk about, all kinds of investing strategies and ways for you to necessarily make money with cryptocurrency. But at points in our discussion, it will naturally come about that we will cover some points that deal with investing. All right. So as the discussion evolves, so we will enter into those topics. This also isn't about trading per se. Although trading is important when it comes to cryptocurrency, this isn't necessarily about that. This isn't about getting rich. This isn't a get rich quick scheme. So I don't have anything to sell you or this amazing strategy that's going to make you rich. All right. This isn't about buying any product or me selling you a product or a service. The products we talk about are for educational purposes only. I don't endorse any of these particular products up to and including Bitcoin itself. Just so you know, you can disagree with me. You can argue with me respectfully. You can correct me, but please be gentle because I am human. I have feelings, and I have feelings too. But sure, absolutely, I invite people to agree with me. I certainly invite you to correct me if I misquote something or if my information is incorrect. Also, I'm not giving you the 100% gospel because there might be other perspectives, right? There can be another interpretation of the same information. So essentially, I'm giving you information from my understanding, my experience, and the best way that I know how to communicate that. Today, I only want to do three basic things. First, I just want to introduce myself. I wanted to kind of get the feel of being in front of you all, get the feel of just kind of talking to a wider audience than what I'm used to. I also wanted to introduce the topic to you. I know you guys have heard so much about cryptocurrency. We've kind of gone, through high points and low points within the media. But at this point, if you are listening to this podcast and if you actually have an interest in the topic, what I ask of you is something very simple. I said, no matter what level you're understanding, how much information you have or that you don't have, I just ask that you clear your plate and start off fresh with me. Kind of walk with me through this story, gain an understanding and see where I'm coming from. And then you let me know if this is something that's helpful for you in your life. Also, the third reason I'm here today is to explain why it's so important for us to pay attention to this. As an educator, I have several goals. So I'll be very quick and brief with these because there's something more important than my goals. But as an educator, my goals are simply first to inform. People need this information. This is information not about the future. This is information about the present. The funny thing about our discussion, although people think this is a futuristic topic, I'm actually talking about the past. Most of my discussion is dealing with history. So this is stuff that we have to catch up on. The second thing is I want to educate. My hope is that each segment we will learn a different, you will learn something new about the topic that compounds upon the information that I have already provided to you. Also, I want to clarify. I want to clarify because there's a lot of misinformation that's floating around out there. People have partial explanations. People have watched various podcasts and various infomercials. And really, you what you see right now is a lot of fear and gloom and doom. And overall, there is actually a lot of risk as well. So I want to clarify some of these pain points and make it easier potentially for people to become more involved in the digital market. Finally, I want to motivate change. I want to inspire and hopefully create a technology bridge that will help people that are in my generation and older bridge this technology gap between our lives and the future. But the better question that we should ask is, why am I here? Rather, why are you here? What interests you about cryptocurrency? Is it the money? Is it the earning potential? Is it the culture, the people, the personalities? Is it the metaverse? Is it the technology? Is it something else I haven't mentioned yet? Is it freedom? Because for me, I think the concept of freedom is, for me, the most important aspect of this discussion, which we'll get to that. But let's get down to the brass tacks, because the brass tacks is where we're at. the phrase brass tacks is actually a kind of an old Western reference, but what it really means is getting down to the specific measurements, the specific measurements and details surrounding the issue. Lesson number one, why we should all pay attention. Let's begin with a basic question that everyone should know the answer to already. All right, here we go. Do you understand money? Do you understand money? What is wealth to you? What does money mean to you? What gives it value? How is the control of money used to control people? And how can controlling your financial destiny change your life? So if you do understand money, and I'm sure some, and you know, and by the way, you guys are welcome to type that down in the chat. I'd love to get some interactions. If you're looking at this later after the live broadcast, I'd love to. I do read the comments, and then I'll read some of those, and maybe come back and interact with some of that. But if you do understand, if you do understand money, if you do understand the basis of how money has value, how money is generated, how money should be used, how money powers an economy, how money is used to grow the economy as well as grow an individual's own personal value, then the discussion around cryptocurrency will be very simplistic for you. The answers that I give will be evident and apparent. But if not, then no matter what I say, you're going to have doubts. That's the first thing. And nothing I say will be able to change the fact that until some of your fundamental beliefs about money change, your appreciation of the topic will not change. So starting with the fact that most of us do not fully understand money, even though we spend our lives chasing it. You know, that's a reality. That's a reality. What I got that I learned in working in this business, I learned that, you know, so many of us, we are highly educated, we are highly trained, we got a lot of skills, we got a lot of assets, but you know what, when you get into some basic discussions about what money is, what money can do, and the power of money to change the world. So let's get to it. Global cryptocurrency ownership is roughly at about 560 million users. That's actually not a lot. You know, you're looking at a global population of somewhere around 5 to 6 billion people. I'm probably off, but it's something like that. But so this comes out to roughly around 6 to 7% of the entire world population. So let's just take the high number, 7%. That means 93% of people still don't own any cryptocurrency. Those are the people that I'm talking to. Yeah. This means that essentially 4.3 billion people are left still not buying it, not utilizing it, afraid of it, doubting its value. All the while, the stock market is increasing. All the while, large corporations are increasing their attachment to it, their ownership of it, and the depths to which they're able to control it. So while we reject it as individuals, the large corporations and the big, what we call big money, is investing into it. They're convinced. They're absolutely convinced. So the amount of people using it is growing, but cryptocurrency is not yet a mainstream event. No matter how much you've heard of it, no matter how much it's represented in the market as far as value, it is not yet even mainstream. It's still kind of niche. So why does this matter? Let's take a look at the bigger picture here. What's the bigger picture? Let's go backwards in time. We're going to jump into our little time machine. We're going to regress a little bit back to 2008. All right. So in 2008, we had something happen. If you were alive then, I know for some of you millennials who were born around 99 and 2000, you guys were only like 8 or 9. You don't remember this, but I clearly remember it. All right. So I'm 50. to put you to know where I'm at. I'm 50. So that means in 2008, I guess I was something like, let's see, doing the math, 25, 33 years old, right around 33 years old. And the global financial crisis, also known as the subprime lending crisis, took place. Trillions of dollars were washed out of the market. Trillions of dollars of wealth disappeared almost overnight. Millions of people lost their homes. Millions of people lost their jobs. Many more lost their businesses. There was global economic shock, and the largest wealth disruption in modern history occurred. This was a collapse. I put this up, this next slide, because it shows these houses stacked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And it says it shows two people. Like the two people is kind of like you and I, basically. It's the public. And then the public is looking on, and the houses are falling over. And one house says subprime mortgages. That fell like a domino. And then the mortgage companies, that fell. And then the lenders, that fell. And then the home builders fell through, that fell. And then the markets fell. And then the U.S. economy, and then the world economy ultimately was affected. So from the beginning, which was subprime mortgages, it dominoed all the way through into the world economy. This photo is a line of people in another country attempting to get their money out of a bank, money that would never come out because the bank has went under. Now, this doesn't matter to individuals who still have access to currency, but for those who had to line up and no money came out of the ATM, it was a problem. You had countries such as Greece, such as Spain, other Eastern European countries went broke overnight. And when we get to discussions like this, it sometimes comes down to it only mattered if it affected you. We have a joke here in America that says if your neighbor loses his job, it's a recession. If you lose your job, it's a depression. Okay, so that's a joke that implies that it's really a matter of perspective, depending on how bad a situation was. But I assure you, the reason I lined up those numbers and I mentioned those numbers before I started was because I wanted to assure you that it was a bad situation. So in essence, if your family didn't lose anything, if you didn't lose a house, if you didn't lose a job, if you didn't lose an opportunity, then it's just history. But if you did, ooh-wee, it was a life-changing event. And at some point, what this lets us know is that all systems have their limits and all systems eventually will fail. And when those systems do fail, it is people that pay the price. The end result of this is that real cracks appeared in the global financial system when the subprime mortgage crisis happened. This was the first real warning that had come to us that let us know that the days of dollar dominance are over, or at least waning. So this is in 2008. So the days of dollar dominance weren't over yet, but this was one of those first signals that there was a serious problem within the financial system that had to be addressed. What was the problem? Well, there were several, and I'm not going to be able to go through them all right now. This is, I'm kind of broaching the topic, meaning I'm opening up the topic, but we're going to get into depths a little bit in some of the future episodes. But just to skim off the top, okay? The basic problems were, number one, there was no public oversight. Nobody from the outside could see what the banks were doing on the inside. Nobody from the outside could see what the mortgage lenders and what the people who were writing up the contracts and selling these loan packages, no one could see what they were doing. There was no way to manage it. There was no way to monitor it. There was no way to bring accountability for those who were actually breaking the law. So that brings us to point number two. There was no enforcement within the system. And essentially what that lets us know is that the system was rigged against those who the state doesn't particularly like, or who don't have power, money, and authority. Simple as that. And it didn't happen out of nowhere. if you look at the chart right next to that I have right here on the screen, it says U.S. housing prices, which had reached growth rates of 16%, began to decline in 2006. But they kept packaging them, and they kept selling them, and they kept raising the prices. And every time you would go back to buy a house, the price might be priced even higher. But they're going to sell it to you. They're going to sell it to you. Anybody at this time almost could get a house. But the problem wasn't that they couldn't get it. The problem was there wasn't enough money in the world, in the American financial system, to pay for these houses. The people didn't have the money, and the rules didn't keep the cars on the road. In the midst of chaos, there is always opportunity. And in the midst of this chaos, an opportunity for change arose. 2008 proved something to people who were paying attention. Number one, the system can collapse. Number two, risk is not evenly distributed because it didn't affect everybody equally. And corruption, no matter how much you claim it, is never eradicated. No matter how much a person claims that there's the SEC, there's people watching, there's the authorities. The truth was, at least at this time, nobody was paying attention and no accountability ever took place. As far as I know, not one single person went to jail for what happened during the 2008 subprime lending mortgage crisis. If you know better than me, let me know. But as far as I know, nobody went to jail for that. Who absorbed the damage? Who paid the cost? Who suffered the consequence? The public. Enter Satoshi Nakamoto. As you see, it's dark face, question marks, because the truth is, we don't really know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. He's a mysterious character. He kind of just appeared around this time. His identity, even to this day, is still unknown. We don't know if he's a group, it's an individual. Some people, I'm of the theory it could be the CIA. The CIA could have created blockchain. It could be a moniker for a governmental group. But we're at the CIA. Why would the CIA give us something that would make us more free, right? So that's probably not accurate. But there you have it. So people are just kind of trying to guess, and your guess is just as good as mine. But the point is that whoever Satoshi Nakamoto was, he understood money. And he created a monetary program. He didn't introduce digital currency per se. What Satoshi Nakamoto did was he introduced the monetary system that would allow us to create a currency that can exist without a central banking authority. We call this decentralized finance. All right. So the American system is centralized. The UK bank is centralized. The Saudi bank is centralized. The Russian bank is centralized. What does that mean? It means central authority is controlled at the top by the powers that be. But decentralized means that there is no one single authority, that the rules are enforced by the entire network of participants. This was the core idea behind Bitcoin. And then he disappeared. He disappeared, but he left us with a new idea of money that did not exist before him. And this was called the Bitcoin white paper. So in 2008, a new concept was introduced called Bitcoin. And the basics of it, and I'll just give you the basics. I'm not going to go into too much detail. It was this. It was peer-to-peer. You know what peer-to-peer means? It means person to person. It means me to you. It means me to someone in Africa, or me to someone in Russia, or me to someone in China without an intermediary. No central authority. So that means if all of a sudden, you don't like me, you don't like my religion, you don't like, you don't like my politics, you don't like who I vote for, and you guys are seeing today, look what's happening today. For the first time I went to vote, I didn't go to vote for the first time, but when I went to vote for the first time, I was asked, am I voting as a Republican or a Democrat? And depending on what you were voting was the side that you were supposed to go vote on. It's like, are you a Crip? Are you a Blood? it was bizarre. But what that let me know was, oh, okay, so now they are identifying who we are as voters. They're basically, someone's looking, someone's watching. They're identifying who we are as voters. So let's take it back to this issue. So the issue here is, what if one group got in power and wanted to lock the other group out of the financial system? What could you do about it? Nothing. Nothing. So there's, with Bitcoin solves that. Decentralized currency solves that. Cryptocurrency solve that by removing the central authority and introducing cryptographic verification as its main system of security, providing an open source forum so all the people who participate in that currency can see what's happening. All the people can see if the rules are being enforced. All the people can see if a purchase is being made or if something is being sold. This is a system of money without banks, anytime, anywhere in the world, for very low cost. So keep in mind that digital money isn't new. Okay, so Satoshi Nakamoto didn't introduce digital money per se, but what he, think back a little bit, credit cards are digital, online banking is digital, wire transfers are digital, all these things, digital money already existed even in the 90s. It's as old as the internet almost, but there were some deficiencies. Digital currency began with the first iteration of the web, the internet. All right, so what we call Web 1 began with digital currency, and digital currency essentially was something that was done between banks, where banks would adjust their ledgers according. So if Bank A withdrawal from another bank went to Bank A, then they would just withdraw each other's ledgers and they would adjust it. And that's essentially how money was traded. But this is limited to banks. This doesn't allow individuals to participate. So there were several big problems with this. It wasn't cash-based. So there was a risk of what we call the double spend. How do you know all these digits are backed up by real money? You don't. In addition, there were some other problems even bigger than that. For example, you and I were excluded. Digital currency did not exist in the public realm, except through credit cards, for example. But other than that, we couldn't use digital currency. You and I couldn't verify, meaning anyone that was not in the banking system, anyone that was not in the SEC or the IRS or maybe Congress, couldn't see what's happening with the currency. Nobody can look. You can't go to Bank of America and say, "Hey, Bank of America, how much money do you all have in your banks? And who do you lend it to? And how often do you lend it? And what do you make on that?" They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you. All right. But with cryptocurrency, we have an open source system that allows the participants to look and see what's actually happening with the money that's in the system. This means that essentially we were all prisoners of a monopolistic banking system that did very little to benefit us. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking in your mind, well, what do you mean, Mr. Carr? How are they supposed to benefit us? They gave me my money when I asked for it. Sir, ladies and gentlemen, there is far more to a banking system than just giving you your money back. So what do I mean when I say it didn't benefit us? Well, what I meant was this. We couldn't send money to who we wanted to. If they were on a list, or if they were in a certain place, or if they were a certain person, we couldn't send them money. Not when we couldn't send it when we wanted. If it was a holiday, if it was a federal holiday or a banking holiday or any of that, we couldn't send it. If it was a weekend, perhaps, we couldn't send it. We couldn't send it where we wanted. If it was a certain country, if it was even out of the United States, you couldn't just send it. You had to go down to federal You had to go down to the wire transfer place. I don't forgot the name of them now. That's how Western Union. That was one of them. You would have to go to like Western Union, and you have to present all this identification, and yeah, you got to do all these changes, and you got to pay them a percentage. So we were taking money from a bank to give it to another bank so that they can transfer it to another bank, and then finally the person would get their money. And look how many little bites are being taken out each and every time. So this was extremely costly to people, and it was extremely costly to banks as well. The government is alerted every time there's a transaction over 10,000 K when you deal with the banking system. But with cryptocurrency, those type transactions are normal on a daily basis. All money at this time was trapped in the US banking system, except for with the rich, who, because of their wealth, have the ability to step outside of the US banking system and do other things with their wealth and exchange it in ways that still mystify us to this day. So what's new about cryptocurrency? Look, some basic things about it you got to understand, right? I mentioned this a moment ago. Number one is peer-to-peer, all right? So that means it's person to person without the intermediary. Number two, we have direct transactions, no middleman, global access, meaning that if I want to send my money to someone in Russia, I can do that. For example, the Ukrainian war. Russia was for both sides, both actors, Russia and Ukraine, both raised money and sold merchandise and traded using cryptocurrency to avoid the central banking system. This was maybe radical at the time, but this is so normal by today. Look, Ahwell Lumsey says exactly so many hoops to jump through in order to get the information. This is by design. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Sounds like a bunch of bookies. Almost. Ouch. You said it, not me. Let's keep going. Access changed. What else happened? With the introduction of Bitcoin, access has now changed. You've seen a power shift, right? And I mentioned Bitcoin only because that's the big one, but I mean cryptocurrency in general. I don't have a particular, I mean decentralized currencies, okay? Any of those. So the access has changed from banks controlling everything to individuals being able to participate. So now we as individuals can do things like, yeah, we can create our own currency. We can create our own currency. You start your own business, you can create a currency that supports the things that you're doing in that business, and you use that currency within your business. It's even more than a coupon, because coupons have to be redeemed, but cryptocurrency actually has value. Ask Donald Trump, hate to bring him up, but you saw what he did. He got on the train, he saw it, he saw the move, he jumped, and he got the Trump coin, and he got the Trump, he got he saw, yeah. You got all that going on, right? So I'm not just making this up. What I'm here to let us know, to speak about is that we're behind on the issue and we got to catch up with the issue. All right. So let's keep going. Now individuals can participate, and this represents a power shift in the world. So just so you're aware, to be clear, a decentralized network of computers secures the Bitcoin network. All right, so that's how it's secured. So where is it? What is it? It's in the computer system. That's it. So pretty much our world is governed by computers these days. So that's not a strange thing. But to people who lived in a strictly cash-based society and they're transitioning into one that's not, it is a strange thing. Okay, so I definitely understand that. Just as banks secure the system of dollars, so computers and the network of computers that participates secures the money. In other words, it only exists in cyberspace. And for this reason, some people feel like it's worthless. That's the worthless part. That's the part where people are like, well, I can't see it. I can't touch it. I can't hold it. I can't stick it under my mattress. So it must be worthless. So no. We don't stick it under our mattresses, ladies and gentlemen. We stick it in our phones. Yet most money today, and by the way, just so you know, the days in the mattress are over. Most money today now exists in the digital form. The little cash, that's for like the peons running around. Us poor people, got a few bucks in our pockets. But the actual money, the real money, exists in digital form on some computer on a microchip somewhere in the world. So blockchain, let's get to the core issue here. What we're talking about when we speak of cryptocurrency is actually a technology. Okay. The name of the technology is blockchain. Blockchain is the foundational technology of all cryptocurrencies. Although someone's going to come and say, well, some cryptos don't have block. That is true. Some do not have blockchains. They have other type of similar systems, but let's just keep going. Blockchain is the foundational system. This is what was invented or presented in 2008 and introduced to the world that ultimately became Bitcoin. The blockchain is the underlying technology that puts the cryptography into digital currency. It puts the crypt into crypto. All right. The cryptographic mechanism of cryptocurrency. All right. That's where the word comes from. Essentially, it makes it decentralized. It makes it trustless. So unlike the banks who say, trust me, the cryptocurrency, it's trustless. You don't need to trust me. I don't need to trust you. It's a system that is made where it's so open that trust is not a necessary component. Also, it's verifiable. Everything we make, everything that's made within a system can be checked, can be verified. Every transaction, every purchase, every exchange is verifiable, and it's verifiable globally, anywhere throughout the world, 24 hours a day. And by the way, if someone don't like you because they don't like your politics, they don't like your color, they don't like your race, they don't like your religion, they don't like where you live, they don't like who you represent, they don't like who you stand with, should I keep going? Any of that, they can't stop you from interacting in the system. That is digital cash. And by the way, that is also freedom. So it's important, as we wrap up here, it's important to remember that underneath all the funny brand names and techno speak, there's one singular technology, and that is blockchain. So saying Bitcoin isn't real is almost like saying the internet isn't real and that .coms don't have value. It's a technology, therefore people will use it. It's a commodity, therefore people will trade it. It's a form of cash, therefore people will spend it. As I wrap for today, let me tell you a little story about technology. When it comes to important advances in human civilization, technology was always at the root. Meaning when we advanced and became better as people, it was always some kind of introduction of technology. For example, the introduction of fire, the invention of the wheel, the combustible engine, electricity, the computer, the internet, blockchain, the underlying technology of Bitcoin, AI computing, quantum computing. Blockchain is just one of those inventions in that process. And for all those who still think it has no value, because I know there's still some that are like, yeah, man, I'm not convinced. Check this out. You don't have to take my word for it. What I'm showing you on this page right here is it's a snippet from the CoinMarketCap registry of all the coins that are sold on the market. Okay, if you look up at the top corner on the left, it says market cap. It says 2.66 T. See that? What you think that T stands for? So market cap means it's basically like saying the net worth of something. When we say Jay-Z's net worth is 2 billion, and we say Kanye West's net worth, all right, well, for cryptos, we say market cap, their total value of all the distributed coins and tokens. Well, the market cap of this market is $2.66 trillion. And Bitcoin, its market cap alone is $1.6 trillion. It makes up 60% of the total market. That's why it's so big. That's why you keep hearing Bitcoin. That's why you hear people say Bitcoin is like gold, because Bitcoin makes up 60%, Ethereum makes up 10%, and all the rest. And by the way, there's 50 million. Look down in the very far bottom corner of this of this slide, it says crypto's 50 million. That's how many are currently in the market. Now, let me ask you this. If a few years ago, rather than saying, oh, that's fake, that's BS, man, that's not real, it's going to fall away. If you'd have said, you know what, I like that. Let me get into that. Let me make my own digital coin. Let me make my own decentralized autonomous organization. Let me make my own project. Let me get in on a project. Where would you be today? Where would you be one of these 50 million registered right here? Rather than sitting and listening to an introductory version of why this is important for us to pay attention. You probably will be given the lecture. So let me just close off with this. Just a reiteration of what I told you a moment ago, Bitcoin is 60%. So that's why we always want to hold the Bitcoin. Ethereum is 10%, but that's still huge. And every other coin, all 50 million fight over the other 30%. Crazy, crazy. It's like, and if we compared it to other things, for example, if we compared it to Amazon's market cap is 1.4 trillion. All that company, just 1.4 trillion. Google's 1.6. Almost the combined value of those two is what Bitcoin is worth. Not quite, but almost. Bitcoin is as large as the biggest companies in the world. It's smaller than gold, so that lets us know that gold still maintains that top asset of things to be bought, hold, and to trade as value. But Bitcoin is often called digital gold for a reason. Because I tell you this, my friend, you can't haul your gold up into the store and buy yourself a stereo, a flat screen TV. You can't. They're going to look at you crazy. They're going to tell you, go down to the pawn shop and come on back, right? You can't use gold like that, but you can use Bitcoin. And when we compare it to countries, it is comparable to medium to large national economies. It's comparable to some national stock markets, but although it's smaller than the global stock market and smaller than the American one as well. But just to be compared, that lets us know how profoundly powerful and important this particular product is in our world. Meaning Bitcoin is not niche anymore, ladies and gentlemen. It is globally significant. It is definitely something that we should all pay attention to. And I'll leave you with this. If Bitcoin were a company, it would be one of the most valuable companies on earth. But the good news is it's not a company. And that means it's not controlled by a CEO. It's not controlled by a board of voters. It's actually controlled by the people who use it and hold it on a daily basis. So you tell me, can we afford to look away? So join us for our next episode, May 18th. We're going to talk about how the cracks in our financial system necessitate changing our behaviors. Also, on May 25th, we have another one that comes after that, which will talk about what happens when you lose access to the banking system. Actually, this one's not going to be May because they're 2 weeks apart, so I'll correct that one again. But the next episode will be after the 18th. The next episode then will be what happens when you lose access to the banking system. So with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Brass Tacks Cryptocurrency Podcast. We stream every other Monday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Culture Shifts Media Network. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. So as for myself, you can find me. My business is gobanklessnow.com, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.